Hi, I'm Delisi.
And I'm Chef James Rigato.
And in this episode of Essential Cooking, James and I talk with Dazmonique Carr, founder of Deeply Rooted Produce in Detroit. I first heard about Dazmonique's work when a colleague of mine at WDET, Anna Marie Seisling, did an in-depth interview with Dazmonique for WDET's series Rooted. Dazmonique spoke with me and James about building a better, more accessible local food system for Detroiters through Deeply Rooted Produce. You are doing such incredible work in Detroit. How would you describe the work that you're doing?
I would say the work that I'm doing is a food evolution. I learn about what I'm doing each and every year that I kind of go into reflection after the operational year. And I definitely see that it is an evolution into a change of the food system that we participate in. But Deeply Rooted Produce is a mobile grocery store, and that's the end goal where we're working on today.
Yeah. How is it going with the mobile grocery store? I know that's a huge undertaking to make sure that you have a constant supply of food and get it to the right people.
Right.
And that's your biggest goal, is to get it to people who don't have access to a good, secure food supply.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's going really well. We have a lot of great crops that we're growing this year, in addition to aggregating from different local farmers and Western Michigan farmers as well. But the main focus is the hyperlocal produce grown right here in Detroit. We started we had our first distribution this week. Actually, yesterday we were at Palmer Park Farmers Market. The day before that, we were at Criterion Urban Farm, harvesting strawberries and distributing those boxes. So I'm just excited for a lot of fruit to be distributed. Actually, that's my favorite.
Dazmonique, one of the things that you said in your interview with Anna was, it's something that I think about when I garden, is getting my hands in the dirt without the gloves on.
Yes.
And that was a very interesting thing to hear you say. Can you talk about why you feel that's so important to have that kind of connection?
Well, it's very important because there are nutrients and minerals in the soil. A lot of people don't realize that there's vitamin B6 in the soil. Actually, I forget the C word, cobalt or something like that, that's in the soil. So when our ancestors used to say, put some dirt on it, that's literally probably why, because it's healing. Like, I cut myself yesterday and I was with a volunteer. She was like, oh, I have Band-Aids. I was like, no, I'm gonna just put some dirt on it. So it's just healing. The soil has nutrients and minerals. That's why it's called soil and not dirt. And it's compost and things like that, because it's a compilation of different things that have already broken down, and it's very nutritious.
What would you like people to know about what you're doing and how to have access to food now? Or is part of what you're doing helping people grow their own food as well? So can you talk about, I know you have your own farms, and we should talk about those. Are you trying to get people to learn how to grow their own food as well?
Yes. And it's more so about facilitation. So I think that the first thing that came to mind is that we're not recreating the wheel. There used to be a food truck coming out in Detroit. I actually was speaking to a Detroiter yesterday on the east side. She said that there was a fish truck that came out. There was a fruit and vegetable truck that came out. A guy from Georgia had peaches that he would come around, and they would be consistently in the neighborhood. So that I literally told her that's exactly what we want to do. Although they're not around anymore, we just want to be consistent in the neighborhoods and have that presence and facilitate the distribution of the food that's already being grown. So if a farmer or a chef is actually growing food that they have a surplus of for their household, that we're a platform where they can distribute that produce. And so we do facilitate it, but we refer to other organizations like Keep Growing Detroit and Voices for Earth's Justice and things like that for the educational piece, but we're the facilitation of the actual food system.
And where are your farms?
So the Deeply Rooted Gardens is located at 2560 Chalmers in Charlevoix. That's a partnership with Neighborhood Grocery, Raphael Wright. And then we have Auxiliary Farm on Young and Queen, 14874 Young. And those are two different volunteer sites as well, if anyone's interested in coming out.
I should mention that you were going to Wayne State University and you were studying to be a kinesiologist, and you were also studying nutrition at the same time.
And that is an interesting way to have become a farmer and somebody who's really interested in providing a secure food supply in Detroit. Tell us what got you to go to Wayne State and study kinesiology, and then how you got to this place.
Right. So it was the money, to be honest. My mom, I've been running track since I was 8 years old. So I was recruited to run track at Wayne State to be their first official class of recruits. And
when was this?
This was in 2017, and then I stayed at Wayne State all throughout my undergraduate and graduate degree. And so I dabbled, just like any other college student. I wanted to double major or double minor in Spanish. I learned a lot about nutrition, so I wanted to make that a minor. But I learned that some of the nutrition classes could be applied as electives for my major. So I just took whatever the guidance counselors and my advisors in the athletic department, they just said go for it. They just pushed me in whatever direction I said that I was interested in, and I just took as many classes as I could. I took summer classes, and I fell in love with the knowledge around nutrition and food science, but I also found a disconnect with the access of that food here in Detroit. And so that's what led me in that direction.
So you did graduate, or you graduated, and then you said, "All right, I'm going to become a farmer."
Oh, so no, I was still in school. So in 2016, in 2016, I started volunteering with the Detroit Biodiversity Network in the Nutrition and Food Science Department. And we found that, they found it, and then I just started volunteering in food science building. There's a greenhouse that was multiple years old and no one had used it for years, on the fourth floor in Science Hall. And so it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do here? But they wanted to grow native plants and put them on campus, but I wanted to grow food because I knew, exactly what my food security, background was, my food insecurity pretty much. And so I started volunteering with them, and then Stathis Paul from Detroit Biodiversity Group, network, they introduced me to Keep Growing Detroit. And so then I started volunteering.
They're doing
with
such
them.
great at Keep Growing Detroit. Yeah,
exactly. So volunteer with Keep Growing Detroit. And once I started learning about transplanting food, I was like, oh, okay, I could do this. And a bag of seeds or a packet of seeds is about $2, and all the abundance that you receive is just amazing.
Now, are you planning your future plantings based on what you're seeing absent in the nutritional availability to Detroit? Like, are you looking at things like, kale, or there are certain greens or fruits that, obviously fresh fruits and vegetables are probably the hardest to get access to in the city. Does that really dictate your plantings and your future plans?
So what I see a disconnect in right now is a lot of access to high quality, non-moldy fruit. So when I was on campus, going to different grocery stores, I'm not going to name them, but there's only one in the area. But the blueberries would be super moldy each and every time, but cost about $4 or $5 for a pint. And so that's frustrating. And then the pears, every produce item, every fruit item that I've run into, bananas, pears, apples, most of them have to be harvested prior to their peak nutritional value. They're harvested when they're not ripe, pretty much. So that's the disconnect that I kind of see, and that is what determines what we grow, pretty much. That disconnect in the nutritional value. The kales, the collards, they're in abundance right now. A lot of people are growing them. Even when we go to farmers markets, they're like, oh, I have, salad mix in my backyard and things like that. They just so happen, if we do a Cherokee purple tomato or different varieties of tomatoes, then it's like, oh, wow, piquing interest. So we want to dabble into different things that people don't really experience in those other produce items that are hard to find at peak ripeness, because it is hard to distribute produce when it is ripe. I do understand the operational decisioning around distributing not ripe, whatever the opposite of ripe is in the produce world, but it's still not, the value is more important to me.
Yeah.
Worried about the bottom line.
Black perspectives haven't always been centered in the telling of America's story. Now, we're taking center stage. Introducing NPR's Black Stories, Black Truths, a collection of Black-led stories from NPR's podcasts. Search NPR Black Stories, Black Truths wherever you get your podcasts.
Talk about your parents and their influence on you when it came to doing the kind of work that you're doing right now. It was your mom, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, honestly, it's both of them. Like they have more agricultural roots than I've realized. Like getting into this work has made me closer to them, as I mentioned in the other interview, where it's like, okay, in my dad's household, growing up in Idaho, North Carolina, they couldn't live in the house unless you participated in weeding, harvesting, and just tending to the crops, pretty much. And the same thing with my mom. She said she was tired of pears because they only had pear trees on the house, and they had chickens and whatever other animals, and so it's just in my blood, pretty much. That's literally what it is, and I didn't realize that until I was drawn to it, until I was reintroduced to it. And my favorite fruit is pears, or are pears. And when I was doing the agricultural program at Earthworks, I tasted a Detroit pear for the first time, and I never taste a most delicious, juicy, flavorful, sweet, evenly sweet, just whatever type of descriptive adjectives for phenomenal. It was that. So yeah, and I don't know what, my mouth is watering right now. I don't know what was reconnected in me, but it was I can't go back. So when I go to grocery stores and there's unripe pears, I'm about to throw up because it's not ripe. Those chemicals in that food are not prepared for you to, consume them if they're not ripe. Because if you're in tune with your body, your body is going to give you signals so that, you don't really eat it or you don't continue to eat it. So that's what we really are striving for, just high nutritional value.
It's just a lot to think about people don't think about when they're consuming food. It's am I getting all the nutrition that I think I'm getting? Probably more often than the case is that you're not. And to be able to think about food that way, about eating it at that right time. I remember, James, you said one time, if you're eating tomatoes outside of a couple of months, you're not getting anywhere near.
There's a lot of times there's more nutritional value in the cardboard of the box than it came in.
Yep. Oh, that's funny. Wow. Yeah. And a lot of people are just on autopilot. We have to wake up, go to work, or maybe actually wake up, drop the kids off to the babysitter, go to work. Right. Then, maybe be exhausted, maybe be fulfilled, then get off of work, go pick up the kids, maybe prepare something, or you're heating up something, and just go to sleep, restart the process.
Well, our food system is broken down so far that we're not even aware of seasonality. We don't even know what's growing. We don't even, it should be second nature. You should go to the market and say, there isn't pears in May. Of course not. Right. You shouldn't be grabbing, an incredibly underripe. Right. And you can self-ripen pears, but most people don't know that. Who's buying a pear to let it sit on the counter for a week and a half?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's tough. You definitely have to educate yourself on what to eat. But as you know very well, food is medicine. And if you're eating, poorly, you're going to be feeling and living poorly. It's investing in your body is the right decision.
Exactly.
Absolutely. We are talking with Dazmonique Carr from Deeply Rooted Produce. If you want to find out more, go to deeplyrootedproduce.com and you'll be able to see what they have available and all of the information on all the great work that Dazmonique and how many people are working with you?
Well, we're relying on volunteers mostly right now.
So you always need those.
Always.
So if you want to volunteer,
yes.
Call, go on the website if you're interested in volunteering and learning how to grow too.
Right, exactly. Because literally, we had one volunteer yesterday, and she was literally in the rooter to the tutor of the farming. I had to go to work at McKinsey. I work for Food Corps, so I went to work while she was still harvesting for the CSAs. And went to the Chalmers garden to weed, and then came back to pack the boxes. So you'll be volunteering for us. You'll be in depth in the operations of the business because we just need that help. But we do have two consistent young ladies, and that have been with us for years, and they really just appreciate the purpose and the value of the business. So shout out to Ayana and Naima. You know, they're very, very helpful.
So if you want to volunteer, if you want to learn more, if you want to get your hands in the dirt, which is really healthy, and you don't have to go to the gym if you do this,
right?
You're going to get all the exercise you need. Doing some really good things in this city. So once again, deeplyrootedproduce.com is the way to find out more about all the great work that Dazmonique Carr is doing, and about volunteering or buying from their grocery store and being able to check in with them at the markets in which they bring their produce. Dazmonique, you're making Detroit better. Thank you so much. Our thanks to Dazmonique Carr for talking with us, to you for listening, and
we would like to thank La Marca Prosecco for their support. From the hills of Veneto, Italy, you can never go wrong with Prosecco, whether it's in a spritz or drinking straight.
Joan Isabella is our executive producer, with producer David Lyons and assistant producer Lisa Brancato, editing by Rowan Nemisto. Production support provided by Studios on the Pond, original music by the Mallet Brothers. This is a production of WDET, Detroit's NPR station.